Welcome back to our channel, where we expose the hidden truths behind the world's biggest stories. In our last video, we talked about how Country Garden, one of China's largest property developers, is on the brink of collapse, and how its downfall could have serious consequences for China and the world. We also raised some questions about whether Country Garden's collapse is part of a bigger conspiracy, and if so, who is behind it and what are their goals. In this video, we will try to answer these questions and more, as we dig deeper into the mystery of Country Garden's collapse. But before we do that, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified of our latest videos. Part 1, The Evidence of a Conspiracy. So, is there any evidence that Country Garden's collapse is not just a coincidence, but a result of a deliberate sabotage or retaliation by some hidden forces? Well, there are some clues that suggest that this may be the case. First of all, let's look at the timing of Country Garden's troubles. As we mentioned in our previous video, Country Garden was hit hard by China's new rules to control the amount of money big real estate firms could borrow, which were introduced in 2020. These rules, known as the Three Red Lines, set limits on developers' debt-to-asset ratio, debt-to-equity ratio, and cash-to-short-term debt ratio. But why did China introduce these rules in the first place? And why did it target Country Garden specifically? Some analysts have pointed out that these rules were part of China's broader strategy to shift its economic model from investment-led growth to consumption-led growth, and to reduce its reliance on debt and real estate. They also argued that these rules were aimed at curbing the excessive leverage and speculation in the property sector, which was seen as a potential threat to China's financial stability. However, some critics have suggested that there may be other motives behind these rules. They have claimed that these rules were actually designed to weaken or eliminate some of China's most successful and influential property developers, who may have posed a challenge or a threat to China's political or economic interests. They have also alleged that these rules were selectively enforced or manipulated to favor some developers over others, based on their political or ideological alignment or affiliation. In particular, they have pointed out that Country Garden was one of the most vulnerable and targeted developers under these rules, because of its controversial and outspoken history and reputation. As we mentioned in our previous video, Country Garden has been involved in several disputes and scandals over the years, such as land disputes with local governments, environmental violations, tax evasion, and corruption scandals. It has also been vocal about its political views and ambitions, such as supporting Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement, challenging Beijing's authority over Malaysia's South China Sea claims, and aspiring to become a global leader in green development. Could it be that these factors have made Country Garden a target for sabotage or retaliation by some powerful forces within China? Could it be that these forces have used their influence or connections to pressure or persuade the regulators to impose stricter or harsher rules on Country Garden than on other developers? Could it be that these forces have also used their resources or networks to manipulate the market or spread negative rumors about Country Garden, to undermine its business and reputation? Part 2, The Suspects Behind the Conspiracy. If there is indeed a conspiracy behind Country Garden's collapse, then who are the suspects behind it? Who are the hidden forces that may have orchestrated or facilitated this scheme? Well, there are several possible candidates that could fit this role. One possibility is that Country Garden's rivals or competitors are behind this conspiracy. As one of China's largest property developers, Country Garden has faced fierce competition from other developers in the industry, who may have envied or resented its success and influence. Some of these competitors may have seen an opportunity to take advantage of Country Garden's weakness or vulnerability under the new rules, and to gain an edge or a share in the market. Some of these competitors may have also had personal or professional grudges or conflicts with Country Garden or its executives, and may have sought revenge or satisfaction by sabotaging or destroying their rival. Another possibility is that some political or ideological enemies or critics are behind this conspiracy. As we mentioned earlier, Country Garden has been outspoken about its political views and ambitions, which may have clashed or conflicted with some of China's policies or interests. Some of these enemies or critics may have been unhappy or dissatisfied with Country Garden's stance or actions on some sensitive or controversial issues, such as Hong Kong's democracy movement, Malaysia's South China Sea claims, or green development. Some of these enemies or critics may have also seen Country Garden as a threat or a challenge to their power or influence, and may have wanted to weaken or eliminate it. A third possibility is that some vested interests or groups are behind this conspiracy. As one of China's largest property developers, Country Garden has been involved in many projects and transactions that may have affected or involved some other sectors or industries, such as construction, steel, cement, furniture, appliances, and consumer spending. Some of these interests or groups may have benefited or profited from Country Garden's business or activities, and may have wanted to protect or preserve their interests or profits. Some of these interests or groups may have also suffered or lost from Country Garden's business or activities, and may have wanted to recover or compensate their losses or damages. Part 3: The Goals and Outcomes of the Conspiracy. If there is indeed a conspiracy behind Country Garden's collapse, then what are the goals and outcomes of it? What are the hidden motives and agendas behind this scheme? Well, there are several possible scenarios that could explain this. One scenario is that the conspiracy is aimed at destabilizing China's economy and financial system. As we mentioned in our previous video, Country Garden's collapse could have serious consequences for China's property sector and economy, which account for about a third of the country's GDP. It could also have implications for the global financial system, as Country Garden has borrowed heavily from foreign banks and investors. If Country Garden defaults on its debts or restructures them at a steep discount, it could trigger losses for many international creditors and investors who hold them. It could also spark a contagion effect among other Chinese developers who have similar exposure to foreign debt. But why would anyone want to destabilize China's economy and financial system? Well, one possible reason is that some geopolitical rivals or adversaries are behind this conspiracy. As the world's second-largest economy and a rising superpower, China has been competing or conflicting with some other countries on various fronts, such as trade, technology, security, and human rights. Some of these rivals or adversaries may have seen an opportunity to weaken or undermine China's influence and power in the world, by creating or exploiting a crisis in its economy and financial system. Some of these rivals or adversaries may have also wanted to discredit or challenge China's model and success, by exposing or highlighting its flaws and vulnerabilities. Another scenario is that the conspiracy is aimed at profiting from China's downfall. As we mentioned earlier, Country Garden's collapse could have repercussions for the global bond market, as it could cause a wave of defaults and downgrades among Chinese developers who have issued dollar bonds. This could create volatility and uncertainty in the market, which could affect the prices and yields of these bonds. But why would anyone want to profit from China's downfall? Well, one possible reason is that some speculators or investors are behind this conspiracy. As some of the most active and liquid instruments in the market, Chinese dollar bonds have attracted many speculators and investors who have been betting on their movements and trends. Some of these speculators or investors may have seen an opportunity to profit from Country Garden's collapse, by shorting or selling its bonds before they default or restructure, or by buying them at a discount after they default or restructure. Some of these speculators or investors may have also wanted to create or amplify a crisis in the market, by spreading negative rumors or information about Country Garden, or by triggering panic selling or buying among other bondholders. So, these are some of the possible evidence, suspects, goals, and outcomes of the conspiracy behind Country Garden's collapse. But are they true? Or are they just speculation? And what will happen next? Will Country Garden survive or collapse? And what will be the impact on China and the world? We might never get any answer until it really happens. Thanks for watching, and until next time.